Now, we've also seen these type of technologies exist for decades in terms of machine learning for user acquisition, but I think AI is definitely taking it to another level in terms of content generation, of creating assets and advertising assets, which already is having a really, really impactful thing on that side of it. From the game development side, we see it obviously as a tool across the board that people are using and leveraging to create efficiencies. However, I think there's a challenge in terms of embedding these technologies and tools and technologies that people use from a game development perspective, particularly for AAA and even for mobile, right? So we haven't seen any of these tools really hit mainstream adoption. And so many of the people I talk to basically suggest that we will not see real mainstream adoption of this until it's embedded within Unreal or Unity, right? And then these tools will be really impactful in terms of how games are developed. So Unity, for instance, I don't think they've even ever made a profit on Unity. Period. End of sentence. The engine and Unreal is not far away from that, right? Unreal doesn't really. That was not a profitable engine. I mean, they almost went out of business because they couldn't make games, and they were leveraging. They were focusing primarily on Unreal.
Where do you think it's mainstream adoption only will come through this tech being embedded in Unreal or Unity? Because one of the, if you, it's obviously bad parallels, but there's some analogy, like some rhymes in there. In the developer world, so in the software development world, when we are seeing is that all of these AI coding tools are forks and rethinking of the IDEs. Still not the final form. There's a lot of iteration, but what you see is people really jumping into Cursor or jumping into Windsurf or Cloud Code, which are not direct. They're not embedded in a previous. They're obviously forks, but they're not like embedded in the traditional IDE. And in fact, it's been the new participants that are gaining all of this, like all of the growth is going to the new participants. And GitHub Copilot, despite having all of that Microsoft audience, somehow is not, it's not the big boy in town, right? The Cursor is like the one to beat at a time. I don't know if that's in the actual numbers, because obviously, like if you just enable autocomplete on GitHub Copilot, that will count into their numbers. But in the actual, like, if you look at what people are actually using for AI code development, then they're relying on this like new entrant platforms. So I'm curious what you think is different than in the gaming industry that will require for these tools to be embedded in the either Unreal or Unity, in the actual big boy engines.